Hi YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for October 6th through 12th. This week I read 3 books, I watched 3 shows, and I listened to 1 book. Hey, I'm back home and inside for once. Isn't that rare based on the last few weeks? The first book that I finished this week is Find Him Where You Left Him Dead. This one is a little bit weird. It's about this group of teenagers who about 4 years previously said that they were at one place, that place being a coffee shop, but really they were exploring this local cave and one of them didn't come back. And now, on this very random night, they're all called together, even though none of them have really hung out in the last 4 years, to go find him in this Jumanji/Japanese-inspired game. It's really hard to describe this one because it's very action-packed, which you think it would be given it's this action game where they're trying to actively do something. And yet, at the same time, even though a lot was being described to us, sometimes there wasn't enough for me to actually follow along, and I would find myself just kind of skipping over things and being like, wait, who's under a rock? What's happening now? What exactly is the action I was supposed to follow that I didn't? And there was so much of that kind of writing, if I can describe it that way, that eventually I was just like, alright, where is this gonna go? Are they gonna win or not? Do I even care? I'm not even certain. There was a little bit of character development here or there, but I think I needed more to really care about these characters. And we did get these little glimpses, so we did get these little insights into kind of who these people were as actual people, but I think I needed a little bit more of that. This was definitely an interesting concept, but I think it needed to be fleshed out a little bit more for me to really love it personally, but it was interesting enough. Next we have Becoming Who We Are. This is a collection of, I believe it was 9 different graphic novel short stories about these different people realizing that they are trans as kids and kind of how that impacted their lives. What I really liked about this is these were stories that were based on interviews or research done on these different people, and then you had different people writing the stories and different people illustrating the stories, which I thought was really neat. That way you get an insight to several different writers and illustrators, and then you can look into their other work if you're interested. I thought this was a really good concept, and if you are interested, you should check it out as well. The other book I read this week is something I read all in one afternoon, and that is The Seep. This is a 200-page novel about an alien invasion, and it starts out with a dinner party that is hosted when the alien invasion hits. This invasion, however, is very different from, say, something like Independence Day or any of those kind of first contact movies. Because instead of being like big creatures that are coming and stopping us from doing whatever we're doing or trying to take over the planet, the Seep, which is what this alien culture is called for lack of a better word, basically binds with humankind through either touch or something like water. And then they're in your mind and they just want you to be happy. This turns into people using the Seep to get high and just having these transcendental experiences, and then also using the Seep to do things like grow unicorn horns and wings and whatever else they want. But then it can also be used by medical professionals for things like removing tumors without invasive surgery, and essentially people can live forever if they want to, or they can do some other really interesting things. Our main character in this one is really taken aback when her wife tells her that she wants to become a baby again, and her wife doesn't really understand why she has a problem with that. This is one of those books where I feel like I would have to read it a few more times to get everything I could out of it, because it is written in such a way where I just could not stop reading, but also it felt like a fever dream, but in the best possible way where I was actually following what was happening at all points. Even though, much like the first book I talked about, this one veers off in random directions at points, I followed it every time. I have a feeling this is a book that I'm going to be thinking about for quite some time. On to what I watched this week. I finished the first and only season of Criminal Minds: Suspect Behavior. This was the first spin-off they did, and this starred people like Forrest Whitaker. Richard Schiff was the leader of the FBI at this point, which is great because I love him from West Wing. Janeane Garofalo was also in this season, and the end of this season is an interesting place. Because at the very end of the last episode, we have this situation where either Janeane Garofalo is going to get shot, or French Stewart, yes, he still acts sometimes, is going to get shot. And then it goes to black, there's a gunshot, and there's a to be continued, and it was never continued. trust me, this was 13 years ago. This is not coming back. So now I just wonder if there was like a little throwaway line or two in the main Criminal Minds plot line to kind of tell us what happened with this situation. There probably was, but given the fact that I didn't know I should be looking for it while I was watching it, and given the fact there's a lot of throwaway lines where if you just don't know that criminal case, you won't pick up on it, I have no idea if they kind of told us what was happening or not. However, I can say, since I watch a lot of true crime content on YouTube, sometimes they name drop different serial killers or different people that have done the things they should not have done, and I'll be like, I know that case. I've heard about that case. In fact, I believe in this season, one of the characters referenced Scott Peterson, who is still trying to get out of jail, even though he, I'm pretty sure, definitely killed his wife and unborn baby. Like, I'm pretty sure it was him. I then went on and watched the first 12 episodes, so almost the entire first season of Criminal Minds Beyond Borders. This one is interesting because it follows the IRT, so the International Response Team of the FBI. So basically, if there's American tourists abroad and they go missing or something happens to them, this team goes out and tries to help solve whatever is going on. Which means this show doubles as kind of like travel content because every episode is in a different country, is in a different place. The leader of this team is played by Gary Sinise. We get a little bit of crossover with Penelope. She's actually the only character that's been on all 3 seasons. And when I saw her on this one, arguing with Monty over did he steal her mug or not, I was like, trifecta. Because she's definitely the primary tech analyst in Suspect Behavior, which was great because I love seeing her in places. But I like that this team has their own tech analyst because even though having her there was wonderful, it was a little bit weird because we're used to seeing her work with a completely different team. This series is interesting because I want to believe that they did a lot of culturally sensitive research into these different ethnic groups and different countries that they're going to, and I want to be able to believe that they're showing these different cultures in a very fair way. However, since I don't know enough about these cultures, I don't know if that's actually what's happening. I'm not saying that they did a bad job, but occasionally I'll see these different things in these different episodes and I'll wonder how much they're playing up the we're America, we're the best, clearly these people suck. Although the team members themselves are very good at adapting to whatever rules are in whatever country they happen to be in. Even though sometimes it does get a little bit we're America, we're the best. So that's an interesting thing to note because I don't have all the answers on that, but I wonder if there's somebody out there that's written like dissertations on the representation of different cultures in this show. I would be interested to know. Although I wouldn't want to read it in a very academic paper, so if that exists but it's not super academic, please let me know. We also watched 3 more episodes of Handmaid's Tale. We're still in the 2nd season. We thought the season only had 10 episodes, and then we went on to watch what we thought was going to be the 3rd season, and then it was the 11th episode of the season, so it turns out there's 13 episodes. And yeah, some interesting things happened in these 3 episodes, as they do. I'm not going to tell you exactly what happened, but very intense situations, and I don't know where it's going to go from here. I never know where it's going to go from here. Ooh, I have to wrap this up quickly because the sun is coming up right in my eyeball. If I do this, I can see again. The audiobook I listened to this week is Stay Awake, and I must have listened to the first chapter of this previously and then realized I didn't have the audiobook for long enough that I figured I'd be able to finish it, and I returned it and got it back because the first chapter played and I was like, wait, I've heard this before. Why have I heard this before? So I think that's why that happened, although that plays into kind of the opposite of what's happening to one of the primary characters. At the beginning of this audiobook, the first of 2 characters that we get the perspectives of wakes up in a cab and doesn't know how she got there, but the cab drops her off at her apartment, so she kind of goes to get in her apartment, realizes she doesn't have her keys or her phone, so she's buzzing for her roommate to let her in, but instead some complete strangers come and answer the door, and it's like 3:30 in the morning, so they are mad, and she's like, no, this is my apartment, let me in. And she goes into their apartment and it's completely changed around, like she knows it's where she used to live, but because she recognizes like tile and stuff like that, but it's decorated completely differently, and these people are yelling at her to get out, so she leaves and she's just very confused. And then she notices that she's got writing all over her arms, which is something she used to do as a kid and her mom absolutely hated because she was supposed to be a lady and she wasn't supposed to do that, but this is a way of reminding herself of things, and her hands say things like stay awake or don't trust anyone. And then at the end of this chapter, when she's checking her pockets to figure out if she has any supplies, she finds a wad of cash and a bloody knife. Our other point of view character is a detective. She hasn't been a detective for very long. She actually used to be in the military and then she transferred into the NYPD. And she's of course trying to figure out what happened at a murder scene that is probably connected to our first character. Turns out our first character forgets everything for the past 2 years every time she falls asleep. So you can imagine that her experience is really confusing. But it's also so interesting to read from an outside perspective, because not only as the reader are we trying to figure out if she actually did this murder that definitely happened, we're trying to figure out who this guy is, because there's no way of knowing that because he doesn't have any identification on him, and also trying to figure out why she's in this situation to begin with. This was fast-paced and fascinating, and I very much enjoyed it. So if any of that sounded cool to you, I definitely recommend this. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you were here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you happen to be on your keyboard. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link for that, as always, is down below. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye! I really hope the sun isn't messing up the shot right now.